Howdy, fellow Vine Trippers. I wanted to take just a moment before the show starts to let you know about a great website called Texas Wine Lover. They can be found at txwinelover.com. And they have a comprehensive website that can become your go-to site for information on Texas wines, winemakers, and the wineries that can be found in this state. They even have a phone app that you can download, and that will help you plan your route to create your own wine trip. So make sure and check them out at txwinelover.com. Welcome to Texas Under Vine, an exploratory podcast to scout out the best that Texas wine country has to offer. I'm your wine guide, Scott, and I'm here to lead you on an auditory expedition to the vineyards and wineries across the great Lone Star State. Each episode will cover a different vineyard, winery, or wine-related business operating in Texas. You'll hear interviews, descriptions, and details about each location that will excite you to visit and experience them for yourself. Ready to plan a wine tour? Use these episodes to choose the most interesting spots for you and your friends to check out. Most of all, enjoy hearing about the rapidly growing wine industry in the state and what makes our wines and wineries the best. Howdy, fellow Vine Tripper. Welcome to episode 15 for Texas Under Vine. In this episode, I went down the ways a little bit in Dripping Springs, went to a winery called Bell Springs Winery. It was actually started by a guy named Nate Pruitt back in 2010. Since that time, it has grown, and they have built a full production facility and, like I said, a tap room on site. They have both Bell Springs Brewing Company, which is the name of their beer brewing company, and they offer a full flight of tastings of beers that you can try there. So if some of your group likes wine, but some like beer, they've got you taken care of. Or maybe you'll want to taste both, the wine and the beer. Either way, they can provide what you're looking for. They have 100% Texas wine. Their winemaker has experience with many winemaking locations and actually came to Bell Springs from the Paso Robles area of California. And he did so after tasting a Texas Tempranillo wine and saw what wine could be like in the Texas Hill Country area. In addition to several straight white and red varietals, they also offer a few fun blends. They have names like Mixtape and Needy Bitch, which I was told was named after the owner's dog. They have live music on the weekends on their patio. You can see the schedule of who is playing and a calendar on their website. They also have a great food truck on site with amazing food options. Again, the menu can be found there on the website. They also have a speakeasy style bar called Sidecar that's located actually in downtown Dripping Springs. So it gets two different feels and experiences whether you go to the winery or whether you're in actually downtown Dripping Springs going to Sidecar. They also have slightly different hours as well. So you might want to check that out before you go. On my visit, I was lucky enough to actually sit down and have a chat with the winemaker, Nick Compton. So let's hear what he can tell us about this great wine destination. All right. Well, I'm here with Nick Compton, the winemaker at Bell Springs. So tell me a little bit about yourself. What got you into the wine industry?
A lot of it goes back to vacations with my parents growing up. I grew up in Southern California, and they loved to go to wineries. Wine taste was something they did far before I was ever born. So a lot of our family vacations were centered around going up north to usually a little town called Buellton, sometimes Morro Bay, California, and not far away. Lots of wineries to go taste wine at. And so, both my sister and I would kind of be tagging along, and sometimes it'd be boring, sometimes it'd be interesting, depending on what you could find out maybe in the vineyard to play with. But I think that kind of started something in my head. I don't know what it was at the time, but I just thought it was cool, and I enjoyed the area. And of course it was vacation, so it was fun times. So just, wine was always around with the family gatherings. There's always nice wine on the table, of course. And then by the time I was a later teenager, as parents, responsible parents would do, like, hey, do you want to try some wine maybe with dinner tonight? Okay, sure, I'll try wine. I'm whatever, 17 or 18 at the time. Tried a little. Yeah, that's okay. I remember trying beer around that time too. I didn't think beer was very good. But wine had something a little more to it, maybe more flavor. I don't know what it was. Got out of high school, and that's when I was thinking about, okay, well, what I'm going to do? Gonna go to the Coast Guard? No, probably not. Gonna go study forestry? No, too many trees, you'll get lost. So winemaking, went and studied winemaking at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Concentrated in their enology program. So it was a 4-year undergrad degree in that, and that kind of got me started. That was it. It got me started, and since then, worked harvest, of course, in Paso Robles, where I cut my teeth there for about 6 harvests, I think it was now. Austria as well. Worked at a small family winery there. And New Zealand, worked at a very large winery in New Zealand. So I did a little bit of the globe hopping, but only for a couple of years. Just of that, kind of got not necessarily tired of it, but I was just ready to really start digging my teeth into it, because it's a lot of winemakers that'll do that for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, which is a great experience. But it just wasn't for me. I didn't feel like it was like literally every 4 months, 5 months, you're moving from North Hemisphere to Southern Hemisphere back and forth. It's just a lot of traveling. Great experience, of course, but yeah, that's where I got started.
That brought you here?
And then, that brought me here in 2019. I was looking for work in California, of course, at the time. It was a pretty tight market there at the time. And of course, it's very competitive. So, because everyone wants to make wine there. But I saw a couple job openings here in Texas. I remember trying a bottle of Becker Tempranillo. This was probably like 2016 with my now wife, girlfriend at the time. I had never had Texas wine before. I had read about Texas making wine, but never, of course, come across it. You're not going to come across a Texas bottle of wine very regularly in a state like California. Tried it and was like, wow, this is actually really, really nice. And that kind of, I remembered that when I saw these couple job postings here in Texas for winemaking positions. I'm like, let's give it a shot. Came out here, visited, met the owner of Bell Springs Winery here. We got along really well together. He also grew up in California, but he's been living here in Texas now he's in Montana, but he had been here for, at that point, probably 15 years. And it just all clicked. Definitely a different style of winemaking that one has to adapt coming here, because you just have a lot more variability that you don't get where the weather's more consistent. But I think that makes it a lot more fun and more challenging too. And it just gives, at least from a winemaking standpoint in my mind, a really good appreciation for vintage variability, because some years you just knock it out of the park, and other years you're just scratching your head and thinking, man, I do know how to weld. Maybe I should just go work in the oil fields or something. There's those years where you're just wondering, why am I doing this?
So when you came in, you started here as the winemaker. This location had been here previous to you coming in here. So tell me a little bit about this particular location of Bell Springs. So how did it get started, and kind of what's its history?
And so Nate started it up back in 2011 is really when it got started off. He bought this property here. It was just his house. Actually, right next door is our tap house, which is where we serve our beer from, because we have a brewery here as well on site. But the beer didn't start until probably 2019. But nonetheless, started the winery back then, because back that time out here in Dripping Springs, there was really not much going on. I think there was one stoplight in town right here at 290 and Ranch Road 12. So there's not a lot of things going on. And he thought, hey, let's go ahead and start a winery. Let's try it out. I like wine. I've worked a little bit with the industry back in California before he moved out here. He's from the tech side. He's in the tech world. So, all the marketing and everything, that's his forte, if you will. But he, of course, you can teach yourself to make wine. You don't have to go to college to do it. So much of what I've learned is all by doing, which was actually our motto from Cal Poly. So back to Nate, started the winery and started small. I mean, the room behind us is maybe 1,000 square feet. That's where it all started. And there converted a garage into the tasting room, and slowly but surely gathered a following. We still have club members that have been with us the entire time. Of course, back then too, there wasn't as many Texas grapes to go around. So we were making wines from California, Washington. You'd even get grapes from South America and Europe as well, because you can do that. Because you just got to make wine. So that's kind of how we got started. And then we introduced beer right around 2018 with the prior winemaker. They just did the little 5-gallon batches. And then we brought on Clem Villers, our current brewmaster. And he just really took it to the next level. And now we got a nice 1-barrel system, which is just constantly running because we're constantly making beer. Which is great because we love great beer and we need lots of beer to make good wine because I can't drink wine every single day. Well, I guess you can. I try not to, but that usually doesn't work out.
So how did it get the name Bell Springs Winery?
So Bell Springs Winery just comes from the road that we're on. We're on Bell Springs Road, and I'm always wondering where the springs are. They must be up in the hillsides around here somewhere, I think, to the south of us. We got a little kind of creek diversion going through there. I'm guessing there's springs in there somewhere because I've found the Dripping Springs. They're actually in downtown Dripping. People wonder where are these springs, and maybe they have notions of like a geyser like in Calistoga. There's nothing like that, but there you will find them. They're actually just water dripping out, and on really, of course, normal wet years, it will just be dripping constantly. Just beautiful, clear, pristine spring water
From that aquifer.
Yeah, where it comes up high. Yeah.
So where does Bell Springs source most of their grapes from?
So currently we're 100% Texas, and we source about, on any given year, upwards of 65-70% from Ready Vineyards. That's for our red wine program as well as the rosé. But on any given year too, I always like to spread out the variability because I don't know if you listener are very familiar with the weather in the high plains, but it could be great just like it is here, I guess, in central Texas or anywhere in the south. Could be great 5 miles away, but 5 miles in the other direction, you get a huge hailstorm that comes blowing through, and geez, even May or June, and it can decimate a vineyard. So it's always good to spread your bets out. But for the most part, Ready Vineyards, a little bit with Lily of the Vine. They're in Lamesa, south of Brownfield. Ready Vineyards is in Brownfield. And then also a little bit on years when I can get it from Del Valley Vineyards, which is way out near actually El Paso. And they have some really nice white grapes that I'm able to get out from over there. Buena Suerte Vineyards. So every year kind of, it kind of changes because sometimes things just get wiped out and then you just got to scramble and you'll work with a vineyard you've never worked with before and things work out and you keep them on, or maybe that's all they were that's all they had. That's all that was available that given year. And you can't get it the next year because generally a lot of people try to sign multi-year contracts with folks, which has its pros and cons, of course.
And then once you get all those loads of grapes, the tons of grapes being pulled in here, do you process them all here on site?
Yeah, they're actually, we do the final processing here, but by the nature of being mechanically harvested, they actually sort of get a pre-process in the vineyard by the harvester themselves. There's not too much in the way of hand picking, at least that I've really encountered. It's out there. I had some hand-picked fruit last year, but it's, at least from the high plains, it's not the rule, it's the exception. And of course, you got to pay more for it too. There's just not the necessary work to get that done, or the labor, I should say. So that gets processed up there, picked into bins, and then depending on how clean it is, sometimes some of these machines that pick the fruit, they pricks it pristine. If it's the right variety, you'll have no leaves, no stems, very little what we call mog material other than grapes in your grapes that you get delivered on refrigerated trucks. And so then we'll just go straight to the fermenter with them, or if it's white grapes, they'll go straight to the press, for instance. But otherwise, yeah, we have all the necessary equipment here, of course, to process the destemmer, the press, must pumps, etc. Yeah. At least for the white grapes, though, I don't bring those all the way down, because if they are picked mechanically, they'll be sitting in a bin in their own kind of, juices, if you will, for, sometimes as much as 12 hours before they get to the winery. And that can be detrimental to at least, the type of wine I want to make, and then also just the quality as well of the wine, mainly because of the temperatures at which we're harvesting at. We don't have the luxury of like on the West Coast, you pick at 3 in the morning and it's 50 degrees. No, like we maybe on a nice year, we'll get down into the low 60s when they're picking. But I've had oftentimes the grapes will come in and they're close to 80 degrees, which is, if you know anything about microbiology, that's the nice, not getting a nice warm temperature where things like to start doing their own thing, wild fermentations, if you will, which is generally for the type of wine that most people like to drink. That's not going to lend itself to good things in the final product. But it can surprise you sometimes, that's for sure. But I haven't had a good experience with any sort of wild fermentations, so I'll just leave it at that.
Well, as the winemaker, what's your favorite wines to make?
I really enjoy making just any white wine here in Texas, actually. I think we do a really nice job with the quality of the grapes that we get coming in, and then just the flavors and aromas that we then can capture and put into the bottle down the line. Of course, I'm saying that because part of it's I don't have to press them myself. It makes it a little easier, but that's actually an aspect of control that I lose, which I do sort of regret. But to make the best product, we got to do that. Having someone else pressing it for us up in the high plains, and then we get the juice sent down. But making white wines, I think, is a lot of fun. And as far as the red wines go, I love to work with Alicante Boucher because of the color it has. The aromas are just some of the most, well, we'll put it this way. Like the first time I worked with Alicante, it smelled like white tequila, about 6 months in after sitting in barrel, which just blew my mind. This past year's is actually smelling more like a cool climate Syrah, which is a lot different than before, which I think I actually prefer. But because of the color that's in it, the tannins, the structure, it just makes a really nice wine. It always seems to be just pretty happy. Wish I could get more of it. And then, like I was mentioning earlier, every year kind of maybe pick up some new things or drop off some other things. So picked up Carignan this year. Never worked with it, drank it. It turned out really, really good. And of course, the standbys that we've always been making, Tempranillo, Montepulciano, and since I've been here, Sangiovese, those have always been ones I truly enjoy to work with year in and year out just because of their consistency. I can generally count on them being of sound quality, decent amount of sugar in them, so we're not making super low alcohol wines, which you wouldn't think would happen in Texas, given how warm it is. The warmer your climate, more likely you're going to have a lot of sugar, higher alcohol. But actually, this past year, we had 3 wines that ended up under 12% alcohol that are red wines. They were right at 11.95, which is pretty low. But I mean, if you look at the styles of wines that were made just 30 years ago or so, it was pretty typical to see a red wine around 12.5. So things have been, obviously the flavors have changed over the years. And that's, I think, what is one of the more interesting aspects of making wine here in Texas is you can actually achieve more of that old world style, if you will, sometimes a little more easily than you could, say, in California. But it's not necessarily your choice, though. Sometimes the weather chooses it for you, as it did last year, which is fine. And then you adjust. And I think for the most part, the folks that come in through our tasting room, when they get the description of the wine from whoever is pouring it to them, tell them, hey, like, this is way different than last year's. Described to them wine. Like, oh, well, that makes sense. I like it, or I don't like it. I mean, of course, wine's always subjective, but I think it's a lot more interesting than wine's always kind of being the same every year in, year out. Same sugar, same acid, everything, which, of course, lends itself a bit of security. But yeah, just keeps it exciting.
Well, along that note, with wine being subjective, what are some of you've got a lot of varieties that you produce here. So what are some of the most popular wines from customers' perspective? What sells really well?
Yeah, for the white wines, I mean, I could say almost all of them, but I'll see it ebb and flow based upon what's missing from the backstock room. But generally our Viognier that we make always does really, really well as our rosé. And our rosé can change year in and year out based upon what grapes we get, what the base, red grapes will be to make it. But that one's generally always, I'd say, of the white wines, it's a rosé is a red grapes and you make it like a white wine. That always sells better than any other white wine because we're already on our we're almost 2/3 of our way through our 2020 rosé. We're still on 2019 whites, but that was because of the year of 2020 and 2021 and all the unpleasantness that occurred there. And as far as reds go, again, it's that same kind of thing, but Sangiovese always does really well for us. Tempranillo, I think, is always going to be the top seller besides our Needy Bitch red blend that we make, that's a rotating red blend that it's not necessarily just the leftovers. Like we also make another one called Mixtape. It's not leftovers by any means, but we have these fun labels. It's got our owner's late dog on it. And if you know anything about marketing, actually, if you put an animal on the label, you're going to probably sell 10% more wine just by having an animal. But I don't think that wasn't the goal with that one. Like she really was that dog. Her name was Texas, really was a needy bitch. So she got her own wine. Tempranillo and Alicante Boucher has been a strong performer for us as well. That and Montepulciano, and more Texas wine drinkers are recognizing those grapes as being competitive, as being consistent, and there's more and more of those being made as varietal wines as well, across the board, across all wineries in Texas. So you're gonna see those. You're not gonna necessarily see, definitely not. Even you might see a Pinot Noir somewhere. I don't know, I've only encountered like a 1/4 acre of Pinot grapes grown in Texas. That's not going to do well here necessarily. You don't come across Pinot all that often. You will Cabernet. I mean, we're doing everything here, but long answer. Those are the ones.
So speaking, kind of getting away necessarily from the wine perspective and more towards the location, what types of events and amenities and things do you provide here for people who want to come check it out besides the wine?
Yeah. Every weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we have live music outside on our patio. So we always have that going on. We have on-site restaurant here. And we have a food trailer out there, but it's a full-fledged restaurant. And we can just come to the counter and order whatever you would like there. We have everything from little deep-fried Brussels sprouts with a sweet chili sauce on them. Our chef, Mike Massaro, it's been actually one of his mainstay dishes that just always knocks it out of the park. And we also do barbecue. We got a beautiful pit outside that was generously donated to us, I think, from a club member. So we do barbecue, burgers, sandwiches, wraps, salads. And that changes with the seasons, of course, depending on the weather. One day you'll come in, might find a soup on there when it's cooler, or you might find, fish tacos maybe in the summertime, or when it gets warmer, which is 9 months out of the year, like summer. In addition to the food, music, we have about 3-4 acres of our green space outside to hang out at, got tables spread all around. So it's just a great place to come, and you can, of course, picnic here outside. Bring the whole family. We're family friendly, and children can run around as long as you watch them. And of course, dogs are allowed as well on leashes. It's just a great spot to just come and hang out, spend a nice, 3-4 hours just relaxing under our trees, which we still have plenty after that ice storm. We did lose quite a few, but it's just a beautiful spot. And then, of course, if you don't like wine, because sometimes you don't like it, we got beer for you. We do all sorts of styles, from very light Pilsner styles all the way up to bourbon barrel aged stouts. We have everything in between, of course, pale ales, IPAs, and got anything to kind of suit your fancy. Right now, we had Valentine's Day last week, so the brewing team made a cherry wit beer, so they added some cherry to it, which actually, it looks like a sparkling rosé is actually what it looks like. It's really a nice looking pour in the glass, and it tastes phenomenal. So also with the seasonality, so is the beer making here. And in addition to our location here, we have Sidecar Tasting Room downtown Dripping Springs. A little different experience there. That's styled after kind of a speakeasy 1920s style bar inside. That is also family friendly, and they're open later. We're Wednesday through Sunday at both locations. We're soon going to be moving to hours of 12 to 8 p.m., except on Sundays, 12 to 7, or 11 to 7, I think. And then at Sidecar, it's a little later. I think it's 2 to 10 over there. So we have a little later hours over there. You're in downtown Dripping Springs. There's a few other bars around there and some restaurants around. So you can, of course, easily make an evening of just stopping in town there and walking around. We have piano there at least a couple times a week. We have a nice big baby piano in the front room and got usually a couple nice professionals actually playing on there. So it's just a little different experience there. We don't do wine tastings. We do wine flights, wine by the glass or bottle. And of course we have beer on tap there as well. So just a little different experience. If you don't feel like coming all the way out over here and you want to stay closer to 290, there's that option as well.
Let's talk about then listeners getting excited to come check the place out. And so let's talk a little bit about what a tasting might look like. So can you tell me a little bit about what a tasting is like when they come in here for wine and or for beer, if you offer that?
Yeah, so I'll start with the beer side of things. We don't necessarily do a tasting. You can do a flight is what we would do for the beer. That's pretty much the industry standard for beers. So, you pick out 4 or 5 or all of them if you want. And you can try little samples of each beer and then, okay, that's all you wanted to do. Cool. Or you do that and pick your favorite and have a pint or two afterwards. And then with the winery, come into the tasting room and we'll obviously always greet you with a smile and ask how you're doing. Have you been here before? And then you're free to either do a tasting, which would be 5 wines that we choose for the day. We change that throughout the year as things go on and maybe want to showcase another wine or say one's tasting better now, it's kind of opened up, or another one's closed off. We need to kind of maybe pull it off the menu because wines change in bottle, they evolve. So you'll try through 5 wines and have descriptions of how we made them, where the grapes are from, why we did, certain things that maybe, make it taste, I don't know, let's say like creme brulee. We can kind of elaborate on that for you and hopefully you take a few bottles home afterwards.
And what does one of those tastings should typically cost and for the beer? Like
Sure. The wine tasting is $20 per person. And then for the beer flights, it depends on the type of beer you're choosing, but generally a flight board is right around $10 for 4 beers. And then pints are anywhere from $6 to $7, depending on alcohol content and the style of beer.
And then do you have any maximum group sizes for people coming in?
I mean, I would say maximum would be like 500 people. I mean, we'll make it happen. Whatever you want to do, we can make things work. But no, if you're coming on a tour bus, for instance, and you're a group of 10 people, of course, we request that you would have a reservation. Generally, whatever tour company that you book with, they would make those reservations for you ahead of time so we know you're coming. And if you want to maybe add on certain things to your tasting experience, or if you don't want to do a tasting experience, you just want to do wine bottles and hang out outside and order from the food truck, we're very flexible in terms of what we can offer for groups of people, whether it's 4, 2, 50. We do tons of events here as well. We can host events during the day when we're open. We can have reservable spaces outside. Inside as well. We do events in our new winery that we built. We have a lounge in there. We can do tastings as well and do a production tour. Same with the beer side of things, do tours of the brewery as well.
And do they make those reservations on your website?
Yeah, you would make them through our website. There's generally a button on there you can search through and, do that. But of course, if you're with a tour company, then they'd generally take care of that for you. But if you're just coming out and you want to do something a little more elevated, those options should be on our website. And if what you're looking for isn't exactly on there, you're always free to email us at info@bellspringswinery.com and we'll get you squared away with what you want to do.
What are your busier and slower type seasons? When's the best time to come visit, do you think?
I'd say the best time, me personally, would be the off season. So January through March, basically. And then, of course, in the summer too, is, believe it or not, our slow season as well, since we are mainly outside and it can be pretty hot. Just a lot of people aren't necessarily going out and tasting in the summer. So summer and winter would be our slower times. But fall and spring, we're just extremely busy. But that's not to say you're not going to have a good experience. That's just my personal preference when I go do stuff. There's never a bad time not to be coming by here. I mean, unless it's like it was 3 weeks ago, freezing rain. That's pretty much the only times you wouldn't want to be here, I guess.
Do you have a wine club If so, tell me a little bit about the details on that.
Yeah, we do. So we actually made the transition recently to our collective Bell Springs Club, which is based off a subscription model. So it's no longer the traditional model of where you get a curated or personalized shipment every quarter, which is what we used to do. It was a minimum of 3 bottles every 3 months. And you have that shipped to your house, or you come by and you pick it up at one of our pickup parties, or you just come by and pick it up whenever. We've changed to that from hearing feedback from our club members, and then just also seeing what other similar types of alcohol establishments are doing. There's been not so much in the wine industry, but if you look like breweries, distilleries, the kind of like mug clubs, things like that, where you maybe only pay in a certain amount every month, which is what we're doing, $30 per month. And that will get you 10% off on all purchases of alcoholic beverages here, also food, merchandise. And that works across the beer and the wine. So it's no longer beer club, wine club. It's all one club. And you get to use it both here at the tasting room for the winery, sidecar, and the tap room for the brewery. And in addition to that, you're no longer required to take a shipment every quarter. I mean, of course, in the past, we could postpone for a quarter if you're, say, like, I don't know, in Bermuda or something, or on vacation, we can postpone. But now you just have your accruing account, $30 a month, and say you just want to wait till the end of the year and then make a whole mixed case and use all those funds. You can do that. You can do whatever you want with them. Just buy food, merchandise. The choice is yours. And yeah, you just allows a little more flexibility, and think it's been well received by many, many people, because of course we had club members that weren't on that system. We're transitioning, but not all of them are transitioning right away. But for the most part, everyone's like, yep, that makes perfect sense. Let's do that. Because more often than not, you're not coming by every quarter to pick up wine, especially if you don't live, within an hour or so of here. It's, you have to make a weekend out of it. So I think it's going to work out really well.
So distribution. So do you distribute your wines anywhere? How could people, if they couldn't get here for whatever reason, or to sidecar, how could they taste your wines outside of coming here?
Of course, the quickest, easiest way to get our wine would be you could order it online. We'll ship it to you throughout the United States. On our website, you'll see, should be on there at the bottom, which states we wouldn't ship to, because there are some states we just can't. Just financially, it doesn't make sense to do so. But aside from that, distribution-wise, we really only send our wine to one local brewery here in Dripping Springs. And then we're also in Montana. We're the first Texas winery being distributed in Montana. We were on like 50 or so accounts up there. We're in Glacier National Park, which is pretty cool. But right now, we're just not at the stage yet where we're large enough to get into the distribution game. But we're thinking about, we actually are. Coming up soon, we're going to be joining the Texas Wine Club, which they themselves send wines throughout the U.S. where, say you're in Maine and you want to try just Texas wines. You can sign up for their wine club, and I don't know I can't remember what the model is, if it's every quarter or every third. You would get a curated selection of just Texas wines. So we're actually going to be, I guess that would be a distribution channel. We're sending our Alicante Boucher into that later on, hopefully this month, before too long. And on the beer side of things, we're just here purely at Sidecar and the tap room here at Bell Springs.
So tell me a little bit about plans for future growth. What kind of plans do you have for expanding or for other types of things here at the property?
I think their main focus right now is expanding indoor tasting area. So when the weather is not necessarily the best, to be just outside the entire day. So the room we're sitting in actually right now was the old winery, about 1,200 square feet. We have plans to turn this into basically you come in here to do wine tastings, and then the front counter is where you go for bottles or glasses of wine here at Bell Springs, this location. And then we'll move the tap room actually into the same back room of the tasting room up front. So everything will be kind of more in one space. I think the visibility of seeing the beer there, instead of you come in and you didn't realize we're a brewery, even though we have signs outside that say brewery and everything, it maybe not be at the forefront of your mind because you didn't know. So we'll be moving that there actually pretty soon. have to get this room worked on, of course, to turn it into something. Right now we got drains that are with some open, broken drains here. It's definitely not a safe place to come into right now. But as far as anything else, it would just be more growth outside as well, more tables and adding reservable spaces, maybe some more gazebos. But we just built a brand new winery, so we're kind of set right there, except for, over the years, add a few tanks here and there. Right now we're making about 5,000 cases of wine per year. That's a pretty sustainable number for the moment until, say, we do go to distribution and we find out we need to make more. That's a whole other basket of worms there, because the distribution game you're chasing numbers there more so than, it's a numbers game. I'll just leave it at that to make things work. But for the brewery side of things, there are, within, I'd say, the next year, 2 years, immediate talks about growing the size of that. And that, I think, would probably be the quickest avenue to grow into distribution for beer. Especially around here in the Hill Country, a lot of the bars, restaurants, they love having local breweries on tap, and wineries, of course, for that matter. So, that's probably where we'd be growing the most, in the next few years.
Yeah. So what would you say, in your opinion, is the number one thing that sets Bell Springs apart from all other locations that would entice a listener to come in and check you out and make a visit?
So I think what's, one of the big things that sets us apart is our flexibility here, where we're able to cater to so many different walks of life, whether you like wine, you don't like wine, beer, or if you just want to come and hang out too. I mean, it's like being at a park outside when you come here. It's just a beautiful place to come spend some relaxing time on a quiet road, not that far from the hustle and bustle of Austin. It's just, I think, just a great place to be, just to escape, I think, would be the best thing to say. It's a nice escape when you come to visit us here at Bell Springs.
Well, I don't know about you, but I was fascinated by their very different wine club subscription model. This collective Bell Springs Club is such a great idea to accrue credit that you can come in and use at any time on whatever you wish to purchase with it. No longer are you tied to having a specific order of wine, maybe getting bottles that you weren't interested in. You're free to purchase whatever bottles or even food or merchandise or beer with it that you want. I also found it interesting they're the only Texas wine being distributed in Montana. That was a fun fact. The owner, Nate, has a place that he lives up there, so I'm sure he's responsible for spreading the goodness of Texas wine with the population there. And hey, the next time you're up there in Glacier National Park, make sure to buy some Bell Springs wine and share it and talk it up with the Texas wine scene to people there with the locals. When you decide to make a visit, first go check out their website. It's www.bellspringswinery.com. And they're brewing, they have a website as well that's www.bellspringsbrewing.com. You'll find info there about visiting the winery, renting their incredible spaces for private events if you're interested. Their food menu is there. And I gotta say, if you're there and you try the food, you've got to go for the Texas Brussels sprouts and the Longhorn grilled cheese that had brisket in it. Oh, that was so good. Okay, but getting back to where I was talking, there's even ways to purchase wines on their website. Don't forget, when you go to see them, make sure to tell them you heard about them on this podcast, Texas Under Vine. Now, whether you like wine or beer, you should make a stop at Bell Springs. However, it's time for me to pack up my bags, and I got to move on down the road to bring you even more great content about some awesome Texas wine destinations. If you're enjoying the show, please do me a favor, pass it on to your wine-loving friends, and do me even more of a solid by leaving a review on my website or wherever you get this podcast. That's really going to help me get the word out to even more wine lovers that want all of the scoop about the growing wine industry in Texas and the great locations we have to visit here. Well, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow my socials to be notified anytime the next episode is posted. Until next time, happy trails and bottoms up, y'all. Thanks for listening to Texas Under Vine. We strive to provide you with the best information about wine businesses all over Texas. Be sure to check out our website at texasundervine.com and And follow us on our socials at Texas Under Vine to stay up on all the upcoming episodes. Please email us with any suggestions or feedback. Also, contact us if you're interested in donating, sponsoring, or advertising on the podcast, just to help us cover our expenses and bring even more great info to you in future episodes. Above all, travel safely, and most especially, drink responsibly.
Don't forget to also check out the Texas Wine Lover website and their phone app. If you want to plan a trip to the wine destination I talked about in this episode, the site for Texas Wine Lover and their phone app that you can download will really help you organize a trip so you can go see them. You can check out all of the goodness that I got to experience while I was there. But as you're planning your trip, while you're on their website or their app, you can also find out things like accommodations, restaurants, and even some fun events and things that are going on at the wineries, and maybe even find one that you want to experience as part of your wine trip that you never even expected. So check them out. Again, it's txwinelover.com.